Hello and welcome. In this video tutorial, I'd like to explain to you what is GitHub Action, and I want to demonstrate a project for detection of language through using of GitHub Action. You can either read my Medium article or watch this video tutorial. For a GitHub Action, we need to have workflows. And normally, if I go to the repository, I have a repository created named GitHub Action. This is the name of the repository. Inside the repository, there is a .github folder, and inside there is a workflows folder. And for the workflows, we need a YAML file. And this YAML file, we define the specification of the workflow. So if I go to this language detection, we can see that there is a name for this workflow, and I would like to write a language detection workflow. And then this workflow will be triggered on a specific trigger or whenever something happens on the repository, this workflow can be triggered. And then this workflow could consist of several jobs. You can see that right now the workflow has only one single job which contains several steps. So every workflow can contain multiple jobs, and every job can contain multiple steps, of course. And you can see that every step has a name, and also it does something. For example, like in Git, we have the command like git checkout to a certain branch. We have this command, and if I come here, you can see that, yeah, this get checkout, there is an action specifically dedicated to this, and it's a pre-built component that we can use it here. Also, for example, setup Python is another action, which is a pre-built component, and again, we can run commands in a step, like for example, installing certain libraries. Like for example, if I go to the requirements.txt file, I have two libraries like pandas and lingua language detector library. And basically what it does is like this run command, we can run or install these things. Or for example, here another step is like about Python scripts and running this Python script which we have here. So for GitHub Action, as I said, this .github folder is mandatory, and then we should have like a workflows folder inside. And again, inside that, this YAML file exists. This is again another view of the YAML file. Again, the name of the YAML file. You can say, okay, these jobs which I'm having, like the first job which I'm having, I'd like to run it on like Ubuntu, like a snapshot of the Ubuntu, which is the latest. And then these are the steps related to this job, which I explained it to you. Of course, this job can be triggered, or the workflow can be triggered whenever there is a push on the branches, like which branches. You can specify multiple branches if you like. Right now is the main branch. If I go back to the main, you can see that we have this main branch. So whenever there is a push here, these steps will be run one after another. It will check out to this specific branch, it will set up the Python, and then it will install the libraries like pandas, and then it will run the Python file. So this is the workflow. Again, if I go to the detect underline language.py, here what it does, there is an input folder. We have created this input folder. Of course, I have put a couple of files there, and we don't have to have these files, but it's just I was testing the things. So I'm deleting this, just keeping the latest file. And here I'm also deleting this text to detect file. Just let's keep one file. And yeah, if I go here, there is this input folder. We are just hard code that. And of course, we have defined our imports here. We define this process CSV files. Like whenever there is a CSV files in the repository, we want to read that CSV file, detect the language, and then print those um, detect the language and print those languages on the console. So, for example, we're having language. We set the languages like English, French, German, and Spanish. This is something from the Lingua library, and then we define these languages some detector, like a detector object. And then for all the files inside this input directory, we check if it ends with CSV file. It's a CSV file, and then we try to read it. And if there is a column inside the columns, df.columns, then we will basically continue the for loop, meaning that we will go to the next step. If there is no file like that, then it's a problem. It will raise an error. And if there isn't, basically, we can also delete this. We don't have to do this. Yeah, we don't have to have this. It was just if there is a specific column like detected language, then it will also skip the detection. But let's have it. Let's remove it that we can detect the language. Then, of course, there is a try catch block. It's like for every row, for every row of the data frame, we apply something like a lambda function. This lambda function, it just takes the detector, which we defined earlier here, and then we detect the language, which is, we give it the text X, and then it will return it to the detected language column. And this is for the whole data frame it will run. And then what we want to do is like we want to iterate over this data frame and take the row and just print the text, print the row together with the detected language on the console. And at the end of the file, also we run the file, like if name equal to main, then we process CSV files, which is this function. So here everything is like pretty much straightforward, meaning that yeah, there is a Python file. The Python file will be called from this step of the YAML file, and then what it does is just look into the input data folder. If there is a CSV file, it will check if there is if there is a text column. If there is a text column, then it will apply the language detector to this text column and then put it in a detected language object, and then it prints the content to the console. So now I'd like to show you how this works. Let us just commit the latest changes, make sure that latest changes are committed. I'm using the Git, like this Git flow from Git graph from VS Code. It's like an extension, and committing the things. I'm just closing. I just wrote a commit message. I'm just syncing. Hit OK, and then go back here. If I go to the Actions tab, I'm seeing that I should be able to see the latest push. Maybe I am, yeah, the latest changes are committed. I'm going there. So if I process files, if I click, you see that it's running, and it shows that the setup step is done. Check out the repository is already done. Setup Python is already done. Install dependencies is already done. And Also, the last thing is like we can see the text together with the corresponding language, which is detected by the LinguaPy library. Of course, you can find other applications with the GitHub Actions. For example, you can call an API, you can upload a file to S3 bucket, you can automate many things. At some point, it depends on the requirements, what you want to achieve. Going back to my YAML file to explain this again, like the important thing to keep in mind is that you have a workflow, and this workflow can contain several jobs. Of course, here we only had one job. Maybe we want to store the result as a CSV, like this was like detecting the language. We could have another job that is about storing the result of that detected language in a CSV file, and then we upload it to S3 bucket, for example. So a workflow can have multiple jobs, and then within any specific job, we can have several steps. Another thing to consider, and which might be interesting, is that we can define environmental variables. Like, for example, if you're working with a S3 bucket, if we want to upload things to the S3 buckets, GitHub provides us like these secrets, and it's possible to basically set these secrets on the setting of the repository. And like, for example, you can define a variable AWS access key ID and AWS secret access key, and then put your key IDs there, and then you can define this env within your YAML file. You can define it on any specific step, you can define it for a specific job, or you can define it even for your whole workflow. So this is a nice feature provided by GitHub. And also here I've told that, okay, whenever there is a push, but of course you can also put something like schedule something, you can automate something. Like if you are, how to say, call an API, if you like to test something, you can also put a schedule to be run every 12 hours or 4 hours. For example, if you like to call a Lambda function from AWS on a regular basis, you can set it on this schedule to run on this workflow. Okay, great. In this tutorial, I managed to explain to you what is GitHub Actions, and I demonstrated to you one specific project for detection of language through using GitHub Action and Python. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Thank you very much for your attention, and see you next time.